Archibalds, two Archibalds, and an Alan Archibald.
Hello and welcome to day 10 of our 12 Days of Archie series here on Draw Lose or Draw. Today we are going to look back on our 5-0 win over Hamilton Accies at Firhill back in 2015.
Archibald, on the 5th day of Christmas, when true or came to me, 5 Archibalds!
Here are the thoughts of Mark Wallace.
Archibalds, 2 Archibalds, and an Alan Archibald.
Hamilton bloody Accies. I was working for the record when I done this. I just remember that season, because we started that season really well, because we beat Ross County 4-0 on the opening day. Then we went up to Dundee and drew with our keeper sent off. And then we lost to Hamilton at Firhill after taking the lead in the 85th minute. If that's not typical Partick Thistle, I don't know what is.
Absolutely. It just goes to show as well that Hamilton team, before Alec Neil left, they were flying.
Hamilton went into the game reeling from the loss of popular manager Alex Neil, who had recently secured promotion. Hamilton Accies fan and journalist Ben McNichol speaks of the importance of Neil to that side at the time.
I mean, Alec Neil's probably, the guy's worked absolute wonders at Accies, and he's definitely the best manager I've seen at Hamilton. Do you know what I mean? He's guided us through the playoffs, obviously, with that memorable day at Easter Road. I mean, even you probably won't forget the start that Hamilton made to that 2014-15 season. I mean, we were top of the league still by October. Obviously, we beat Celtic at Celtic Park for the first time in 76 years. And we also, not even just that, I remember like a 4-0 win away to Motherwell. And I'm pretty sure we won 5-0 at home in the January as well, just before he left. And even a 3-0 win at home at Aberdeen, where Tony Andre was on fire. He was absolutely sensational for us. And the stand that night was absolutely buzzing. And I just wish I could get some scenes like again at Accies, you know what I mean? I mean, let's be honest, it was inevitable that he was going to leave for a bigger club like Norwich at some point, considering how well he done for Hamilton. And I'm sure he'd been noticed by not just Norwich, but plenty of other teams. And it's just me, I don't know if it's just me, but I just really wish he stayed until the end of the season that season, because I genuinely believed that he might have got us into Europe, even as ridiculous as it sounds. I think we finished 5th that season or 6th, and I mean, I wouldn't say it was an outstanding squad. I definitely think Alec Neil got the best out of them. Obviously with Michael McGovern, who is obviously a top class keeper for Accies, and is obviously doing well at Norwich just now, and he's also the Northern Ireland international goalkeeper as well. We also somehow managed to sell Stephen Hendry to West Ham that season. I think it was for $2 million. I've no idea how we've managed to do that, because he only had one good season. I think he plays for Morecambe now or something. We obviously had Daz, who was a warrior in the middle of the midfield, and he's probably one of those players that you love to have him if he's in your team, but if you hate him if he's opposition. Dougie Emery, obviously, you know all about him. He's an Accies legend. One of my favourite players at that time was Tony Andre. At the time, he was unbelievable, and I'm pretty sure, I think Tony Andre was the 5th highest goal scorer that season, which was quite good as well. And what I thought was quite interesting was the fact that, he scored 12 goals that season, but I don't think he scored any goals after Canzo got appointed. I think he scored every single goal when Alec Neil was in charge. So I think that's evident that Alec Neil got the best out of him. In fact, he did. He went straight to Norwich after Alec Neil left for about $1 million. And I don't even think he played the game for Norwich, and I don't know if that's just a case of Alec Neil trying to give us some money back, because obviously, I don't know, just because of the transfer fee maybe wasn't enough for when he went down there. We also had Greg Dorkett on the bench that night, and he also turned out to be half decent as well. The same with Brophy, but they just probably didn't get enough time at Accies as I would have hoped for as well.
Martin Canning stepped in as caretaker manager, and he did not get off to the best of starts.
Well, the board said that he was already decided as a manager before they gave him the interim role, which I don't understand. But Martin Cannon was actually given the interim role following Alec Neil's departure, and he lost his first 3 games when he was given the interim role against Dundee United, Celtic, and then obviously the 5-0 thrashing of Thistle before being appointed on a permanent basis.
With the two clubs always tipped for relegation at the time, matches between the two were 6-pointers.
I don't know, Accies, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like it is, in fact, it probably is a little bit of a rivalry, because you feel you go into the games against Thistle and you get the feeling that they're kind of must-win games. I'm sure it's probably the same in your side, but as you said, it's two teams that are fighting for the relegation every year at that time, and 3 points always felt like 6 points in that case, because at the end of the season they'd always prove very, very crucial. Yeah, I mean, we actually did have a couple of good memories against you. I think it was we beat you 2-1 in the August after when we had that Neil. Sorry, I think you equalised quite late on through Callum Higginbottom, and then we pounced in like a stupid defensive error in the 92nd minute to win it through Jason Scotland. I was also at that game, and that was pretty good as well.
A midweek game in January, David Forrest speaks to Kieran Ashton and Jamie McDonald about the miserable conditions that day.
I remember that my vivid memory of this game is it was in winter and it was like
the snow was all the side of the pitch, and
one of the coldest nights I've ever watched football on. Chilled you through to the bone and all that. And I was sitting there, it was midweek and it was shite weather and it was quite boring for the first 5-10 minutes. What's happening? Like, why am I here? What am I literally doing with my life? It's so cold. I feel like I'm going to get frostbite, and I'm watching two of the worst teams in the Premiership, and it'll be a 0-0. I guarantee it. And I was sitting there, and I'm getting generally quite like, I need to reevaluate my life choices here, man. I need to look at what I'm doing in my life and maybe do something better than this. And then Doolan scored 4, and I was like, yep, I've evaluated my life choices and they're absolutely fine, thank you very much. I've picked the right ones right through.
The match is most fondly remembered for Kris Doolan scoring 4, but it was almost nearly 3, as his first was allowed in controversial circumstances.
Yeah, I remember that night was fantastic. Doolan scored. I swear the announcer said it was Ryan Stevenson. I'm pretty sure the announcer announced Ryan Stevenson had scored.
The first goal is Doolan absolutely hoovering it a peach after Ryan Stevenson. Like, it's like 9/10 of the way in for Stevo, and Doolan just touches it in right at the end like an absolute bastard. Like the time when you were a wee guy, you'd be absolutely raging that somebody took that off you. Like, Doolan literally like glances it in. He gets like the absolute tiniest wee sliver on it to send it in.
Having opened the scoring, Kris Doolan went from strength to strength, securing a hat-trick, before then adding a fourth.
Where Doolan got the first one, then just before half-time, it was a great goal. It was a cross into the box, and he just controlled it, like kind of swiveled around the defender, put it in the bottom corner. And then I'd seen, obviously, before, Doolan's have got quite a few doubles for us. He did like a double, Kris Doolan.
And then he does that back heel. And what a goal that is.
But then that night, he then did that back heel in the second half. A back heel, what a way to sign off a hat-trick that was.
Because, like, the defending's awful, in fairness. Like, to give Hamilton Accies a bit of a break, the defending for it is atrocious. If we conceded that, I'd be furious. But, like, the fact he has time to turn and back heel it, and it's like... It doesn't even like arrow in, it sort of trundles into the net. Like, it's an absolute calamity defensively, but like, it's just the absolute cheek of the man, the confidence of him that he does that.
And that is, to this day, the only Thistle player I've seen score a hat-trick. We've not scored one since in the many, many games I've been to. I mean, going to every game for years.
And then he gets the fourth. Because like, by this point, all of the goals we've scored have been his. So it's literally Doolan 4, Accies 0.
James Kearney and David Forrest discussed Doolan's impact at Partick Thistle.
I think that night was probably Doolan's best performance in a Thistle jersey. I don't think that's a particularly controversial thing to say. But, obviously, that's what I'll be remembered for. But the 4 goals, the back heel in particular to cap off the hat trick. I think as well that was the first perfect hat trick. When you score with your left, your right, and your head. That was the first one scored in the Premiership since it had rebranded. I think that's how it is. It certainly was the first perfect hat trick of something. In the Scottish top, presumably not in the Scottish top flight. Presumably is in the Premiership, but that's pretty cool. There's a wee bit of history there for Dools, which, if there's any man that deserves it, it's him.
Absolutely. And like the thing I think for Dools as well is that Doolan very much made a sort of hit on the sort of, not the record book so to speak, but like he was always a player that I think if you were watching the Premiership that time and weren't a Thistle fan, you would know who he was, just because it was always a case of he scored 10 goals each season for about 4 or 5 seasons. He scored the first perfect hat trick. He just destroys Kilmarnock every time he plays them. Do you know, stuff like that? Like he kind of had enough wee sort of nuggets, like anecdotes or whatever, that you would know who he was and you'd be able to say, aye, he's clearly a class player.
Yeah, I mean, also there's he was repeatedly linked with. He turned down Hearts, I believe, and I'm sure Aberdeen were sniffing about at one point. I might be wrong on that, but I think that was the case. But I mean, the thing that best sums up Doolan's sort of this consistent output for me is the fact that this is just sort of bag of a fag packet maths, but as far as I can tell, he's the first player to score double figures in 8 consecutive seasons for the same club since Alan McCoist did it for Rangers. I've looked into it. I can't find anyone. I've really looked into it a lot, and I've been trying. Obviously, there's lots of numbers and stuff kicking about, but as far as I'm aware, he's the only guy to have scored that regularly for the same club over a prolonged period of time. Since like the 90s, and I think that really speaks to just the level of consistency you got. I mean, you're never going to get a 30 goal a season campaign out of Dools. That wasn't the kind of player he was, but he'll get you his 15 goals every season. Year on year on year, and like that's why he was such an important figure for him, in my opinion.
At 4-0, Thistle fans were beginning to get a little cocky, but even then, with a comfortable scoreline, some were still on the edge of their seats.
This is the only time I remember Thistle fans singing "Easy, easy," and even it was weird because I was sitting there and I was like, I don't feel like I've earned singing that. I don't it's so surreal, the idea that we would sing "Easy," and even I was like, nah, I'm not chancing my arm here. You know what happens when you do these sort of things?
Accies thought we bottle it and we're getting beat 6-5.
Aye, it very much so. I'd very much progressed to a cynical Thistle fan by this point, where even I was like, as much as I'd love to sing "Easy," sitting there like we're cheering on Big Daddy in the world of sport wrestling or something like that, but no, I was just a bit too battered by this, and I don't think we've had that since. By the end, I joined in, but yeah, I was still very sceptical throughout the game that we could easily chuck it at any point. And I think every Thistle fan is very endemic as a Thistle fan, where it doesn't matter who you are playing against or how many goals you've scored, you could chuck it away, to be honest.
I remember it was our first season in the Championship, after we got relegated to the top flight, and it was a game at Capello where we were, not that game at Capello, the nightmare game at Capello, when we were up 3-0, and Doolan, when we all thought Doolan was going to make a comeback and we scored 2. I remember it got to like the last minute and we were 3-0 up, we were coasting, and there were still fans looking at the watch, right, come on referee, fucking hurry up, like we could blow this at any point. I don't know what it is. We could be up 5-0. We're still going to chuck it here. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I've absolutely been in games that have been like 3-0 up, and I've been like, right, I want another goal. Another goal will make me feel a bit safe.
Another goal, kill off, and then you get to 6-0 and you're like, get another goal, kill off.
Let's no rest in our laurels here, lads. Like we could banana skin this.
Fifth goal followed soon after, coming from an unlikely source.
And then there's I can't remember if it was Doolan who has a shot, and Eccleston follows it in for the fifth.
Yeah, it's just, it was what a great result that was. I remember Nathan Eccleston then popped up in the 89th minute, grabbing that the fifth one. One of the many random strikers that we brought in over our time in the Premiership. But yeah, it was just a fantastic result that night, and it was just great to see Dools get to take home the match ball finally, which he richly deserved for his time at the club.
Do you remember much about Nathan Eccleston's stay?
I remember him. I remember he scored that tapping against St Mirren. One of the easiest goals I think I've ever seen someone score in the League Cup. I remember he scored that, and he scored again, obviously, that game we were just talking about, the 5-0 Hamilton one. Then he left in January and signed for Kilmarnock, as far as I remember. I think he ended up playing in Hungary or something as well. I remember I was checking what happened to him. I think he ended up playing, honestly, in some Hungarian league. It was, I don't know what happened to his career really after leaving Kilmarnock, but
We love a journeyman, don't we? We love.
yeah, it's not the first time we've picked up a journeyman striker who hasn't lasted. I mean, if you remember, Antonio German played a grand total of 2 substitute appearances against Motherwell and Aberdeen, and then just left. Some of the players who have left us have gone and played in my distant foreign leagues. I mean, you look at like Matthias Pogba, some of the teams he's ended up playing for, like the Spanish 4th tier and the French 5th tier and stuff like that. It's the teams I've never even heard of.
Following the 5-0 defeat, Martin Canning was then appointed permanent Hamilton manager, and the two clubs went in different directions, with Thistle beginning to pick up a little bit of form and pulling away from the relegation battle, and Accies entering free fall.
After that Thistle game, and he got the job, obviously, we lost 10 games on the bounce. So that was 13 if you include the temporary fixtures. And his first win didn't even come until April, I think it was, against Motherwell. So I don't know if that was enough evidence to prove that he wasn't actually the man at first to take the club forward. I mean, Kanzo was with us for a long time, and I respect everything he'd done for us, even though it wasn't the most beautiful football. And if you actually look back on it, maybe he didn't do so bad after all, because he kept us in the division, and that's a big ask in itself, considering the budget that the club have got. And as you said, it's not going to be easy to replace somebody as quality as Alec Neil, if you know what I mean. I mean, I don't think Aki's ever conceded 5 goals when Alec Neil's the manager as well. I think it was just that, obviously, the party Thistle game was Martin Cannon, but that was the first time we conceded 5 goals in a long time. There was a couple of ones with 4 goals in there against Dumbarton, most memorably, when we bottled the automatic promotion. But I mean, it only took Kanzo 3 games to concede 5, which I don't know if that just goes to show again. But I was at it. It was absolutely shit, I'm not going to lie. I've probably spent the last half decade trying to forget about it.
To round us off, Mark Wallace joins David Forrest to give his thoughts on Kris Doolan and this famous game.
It was our first win in 5 games, and our first win at Firhill since we beat Motherwell in October. And yeah, like, I fucking love that man so much. I remember when we signed him, thinking, what the fuck are we doing signing guys for the juniors? See, in fairness, we nearly let him go. Like, he only really got, like, it was only the season before we got promoted that he really kicked on, because I'm sure he was on his way out, and then he scored this absolutely outrageous goal against Queen of the South in the last day of the season, and we won 1-0, and like, we kept him on, and from there, I think he scored 18 goals that season, and then at least 10 for the next 10 years.
Like, you totally think about the sliding doors moment where if Doolan doesn't score that scream against Queen of the South and we let him go, where do we end up? Our most talismanic striker, Mr. Thistle himself, nearly getting released, and the idea that he would just not be there and not be at the sort of crux of everything for the club for the next decade is just unfathomable. And yeah, it just really shows you everything, all these sort of things are on a pivot. Sometimes we always joke about not having the best of luck. We get incredibly lucky that he scored that goal, because I shudder to think what had happened if he hadn't and we let him go. We could probably milling about in League 2 based on our strikers.
We have honestly not had any luck with strikers at all, man. Like, absolutely none.
I love this game so much. It's my favourite Thistle game of all time. Just the best. Just the fact that Doolan scored the 4 was amazing. Obviously, you want other players to score and stuff like that, but for me, this is a definitive Doolan game. More so than the 100 goals. More so than, you know, the goals against Rangers. More so than the last minute win in the Ramsden's Cup. This is the one. This is the one I look at when I think of Doolan, and it's just amazing. It's just the best.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of our 12 Days of Archie series here on Draw, Lose or Draw. It was narrated by Matt Greer and edited by David Forrest, with contributions from David Forrest, Ben McNichol, Mark Wallace, Kieran Ashton, Jamie MacDonald and James Kearney. We'll be back tomorrow with another Alan Archibald memory, and until then, stay safe and wear a mask.